Hello and welcome to the First Issue Club. We're your weekly podcast that covers comic books, the first issue variety. Just like Sue Storm, we love a good read.
There it is. There's a tried and true that I come to know and love and respect week after week.
Hi, that's Greg. I'm Mike. We're going to be talking to you about some comic books.
Yes, in every shape and form, whether it be physical media, such as paper and staples, whether it be moving pictures, like movies, or a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Comic books of the mind.
Just imagine the things you could do. When I was a little kid, I used to imagine myself with Spider-Man's powers all the time.
Who didn't?
That was kind of my, get myself to sleep when I had a bad day ritual.
Okay. This is cool. I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everyone had their superhero they imagined themselves to be.
Okay.
Spidey was yours, obviously.
Yep.
Believe it or not, as much shit as I give him, mine was Superman.
Oh, okay.
I love the idea of flying.
I love the idea of being all powerful.
And being, yeah, basically. I had a real God complex.
Uh-huh.
Then and now, apparently. And so, I just love the idea of, being able to fly and shoot lasers out of your eyes and work in a newspaper.
If you were Archangel, you could really fuck some shit up.
With them wings?
I mean, just appearing as what we perceive actual angels to be in a world where other superheroes and mutants
Not
don't
a biblical, accurate angel.
That would be chaos if all of a sudden you were a handsome guy with 20-foot wingspan.
If winged humanoids suddenly appeared on Earth,
yeah, you would be oh
shit would go down.
I need to go back to church.
I honestly think
trouble.
nukes would be launched.
Yeah.
Just out of fear alone.
Yeah, right.
So if you are a winged humanoid listening to this podcast, stay hidden. For the love of God.
Keep your trench coat on.
Please stay hidden. Keep your trench coat on. Another Michael reference.
When I would always imagine being Spider-Man, the one thing that I had a hard time with was when he would swing around the city, which is one of the funnest things to do as Spider-Man. I always had a tough time grappling with the swinging motion makes sense if you have a ceiling that's a mile high. If you imagine a ceiling that's as tall as a skyscraper.
Sure.
And then you just do this from one to one.
Yes.
What I'm having a hard time with is if you go from a building,
okay,
you're going to start swooping into that building if you're attached to it. And then you have to do another web line.
The physics,
which would immediately crash you into the next building. The way he swings around town isn't actually very sustainable.
Because the way it's depicted in comic books, he would need some kind of propellant.
Yes.
Coming from him.
Yeah.
Not just wings. The physics of Spider-Man, wrong. Completely wrong.
Yeah.
Visually, it makes sense to me.
It looks
I don't
great,
give a shit.
Doesn't it? Todd McFarlanes having him hold a handful of web. This has been something. So my Amazing Spider-Man read-through from start to finish is about midway through.
Wow. When did you start that?
Probably 2 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
And
I know people who 2 years ago just started regular Amazing Spider-Man from 4 years ago.
Yeah, right.
And still aren't halfway through.
Yeah.
You are trucking through these issues.
You have to read multiple. When you think about 2 years, that's well, maybe I'm averaging a little less than a book a day.
Okay.
Because we're not to 1,000 issues.
Close.
Yet. We're close though. So I'm somewhere in the 400s.
And folks, believe me when I say this, get ready. Because when Marvel hits
that's gonna be a million
Spider-Man
covers.
1000, you will not financially recover.
That'll be their first book to hit 1,000, won't it?
Ooh, yes. No, Fantastic Four, maybe?
Oh, Fantastic Four. Probably
Did that predate
a week before. It's a little bit before, yeah.
That is
but I don't think by much, right? Maybe it is by quite a bit.
We'll do some sleuthing.
Yeah.
I'll message CB and see what he says.
Because the Fantastic Four in the first issue of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But you don't see Spider-Man showing up in Fantastic Four.
Do you think they retconned that?
I've read the retconned what?
Well, because the Fantastic Four helped out Spider-Man, but gave him the bag to put over his head that one time because they didn't want to spoil his identity.
Yeah.
I guess they didn't say that was the first time they met. They just, out of respect, covered his secret identity.
No, first time they meet is the first issue of Spider-Man.
Okay. You're right.
Yeah. Don't get us off topic.
Motherfucker. Okay.
As if we weren't like three channels from where we were trying to be. I can't remember where we were even going with that conversation. Oh, halfway through my Spider-Man read, Todd McFarlane is an artist I've got such a hard time with. When he draws Spider-Man in costume, I think it's like the best looking Spider-Man. Like he just does like an amazing job with the details and the webbing and every little
and the no facial features.
Every little thing. I know he does kind of have the like flat face. Sometimes there's like a little bit of a pointed nose, but so much expressiveness in the eyes of the mask. But such a beautiful Spider-Man. The character faces are kind of grotesque. He has this like kind of weird in between like cartoony style and traditional like comic style and like gritty edgy comic style, and the mix of them like doesn't feel right. I feel like let me say this.
Please defend yourself.
You have your hand out like you're going to interrupt me.
This is like my thing of just like, I want to talk next.
Let me get this out for. Well, of course your turn's going to be next. There's two of us. I think his style inspired so many other styles.
Yes.
And you can point at like an aspect of Todd McFarlane's work and say like, okay, these people branched off of this aspect, these people branched off of that aspect, etc.
Same can be said for Jim Lee. Yeah,
right. And so these artists are like prolific and one of a kind for their time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, like in retrospect, his unique style now feels like an amalgamation of different styles that should not be mixed to me.
Right.
Like it's like this weird, almost anime, but like not leaning into anime enough. Like he does the big eyes, kind of like Humberto Ramos ultimately ended up doing,
right?
But like doesn't lean in so much to like the rest of the exaggerated features.
Just the big eyes.
Yeah, that it just looks kind of strange.
I think that's an important thing to remember when we retrospectively look at art and creators and prolific creators.
Yeah,
the historical context of these people showing up is huge.
They were such a singular thing at the time.
The biggest example, which we talk about all the time, is Rob Liefeld going to New Mutants. The pre-Liefeld era of New Mutants and then shifting to Rob Liefeld is so stark that it seems like...
It's like, oh, the future happened within like a 1 month span.
It's like the Jetsons. It's like in the Jetsons era. Like, see you, bell bottoms. Goodbye, crop tops for dudes.
Yeah.
Like, Rob Liefeld's here.
It's like all of a sudden comics changed in like a month.
And it's important to realize that, like, we as observers now in the future get the luxury of critiquing this stuff and seeing how it all comes together.
Yeah.
And, like, knowing where the influences are coming from and, like, how this is important and why this isn't important. But at the time when it was happening, it was motherfucking groundbreaking.
Yeah.
The things that were happening. Like, there's a reason that Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man whatever issue sells like hotcakes. It's because it is a classic, iconic cover that melted people's brains.
Yeah.
Spider-Man had not been contorted like that for a long time. And it set a new dynamicism, which is a
dynamism.
word. I made it up a new word. It's a FIC new word. It made Spider-Man something holistically different.
Yeah.
In good or bad ways, like, they opened up so many doors for what Spider-Man could be and do.
And I think, too, what you and I really, like, people who make hard stylistic choices, or like,
yes,
or somebody who you can look at their art and be like, that's Daniel Warren Johnson.
Yes.
This is Trad Moore.
Because if you're gonna do
that is Riley Rossmo.
Go full bore. Go just like that's why like all those artists you just mentioned and Trad Moore, like, you're just like they're huge because they fucking go for it.
But they're polarizing because some people want comics to look a certain way.
Right. Some people want Dan Mora, and that's fine. I love Dan Mora.
Yeah, same.
But like that is a house style.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, but like it's no Trad Moore. It's no Huberto Ramos. It's no Daniel Warren Johnson. Like
you gotta name it. Yeah, you gotta name three people.
The rule of three. Give us the weirdos. The weirdos are what change comics and challenge comics. That's what I love about those people. They challenged it.
Ian Bertram.
Yeah. Fozzie Bear. really changed the way I saw how a joke should be structured.
Oh, Waka Waka.
Waka Waka. Speaking of Waka Waka, before we go on any further with these yucks, huge ups to Boulevard Brewing Company, Space Camper IPA, Yum Yum Give Me Some, down to my tum tum for sponsoring the show, First Issue Club, the show you're listening to right now, and Mike D. Since we are hosting a comic book podcast, you know that we are huge fans of crossovers.
Yes.
Who doesn't love a good crossover?
Right.
Today we are drinking Elusive Thunder, which is a collaboration between Boulevard Brewing Company and Toppling Goliath Brewing. And this hazy IPA is putting me in the mood for some cosmic wave riding.
Hell yeah,
Brother.
My guy.
I think it'd be a fun job to name beer.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, what a fun task.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hazy IPA, Elusive Thunder.
Oh, okay.
Both things.
Yeah, I think the style of the beer
Yes.
and the beer itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, like, IPA? How fun is that?
What a blast.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Yep.
And it feels good on your tongue when you drink it. So thank you, Boulevard Brewing Company, for being our friends. Also, another shout out if you're listening or if you're watching the show on YouTube, Short Box Podcast from our friend Botter. I'm wearing a t-shirt.
Aw.
If you want this t-shirt, and why wouldn't you? Because it looks amazing. Go to their website. Boop, boop.
Whoop. Let's talk about comic book news. This is the first thing a segment. The intro.
We don't have segments.
The intro, we go on a tangent. The news, we talk about some headlines we've seen and things of interest.
Yep.
And then we talk about first issues at the end. I think we've got 3 or 4 for you this week.
So if we were to break it down in terms...
I think these are 3. I think our
we have
show has 3
you have 3
segments.
distinct segments.
Yeah,
Rule of 3
so.
again. So let's put it in terms of like a dining experience.
Okay.
The beginning is when you show up to the restaurant. They give you your beeper. Be a 30-minute wait before you get to your table. That's us meandering around, just hanging out. News, appetizers.
Okay.
And then the main course is the comic
Oh,
reviews.
the main course is, All right. And then if we have some bonus conversation at the end sometimes,
Dinner mint.
then that's dessert, I guess.
Yeah.
Dinner mint.
No, the dessert. The dessert, my friend, is the Patreon. Patreon.com/First Issue Club. If you want extra tasty treats that'll turn your teeth to rotten little chunks of nerve endings, go to Patreon.com/First Issue Club for a bonus.
Well done, Greg.
Thank you.
First bit to discuss, what I'm calling the Doom bubble.
Oh, boy.
Every Doom cover is selling like crazy right now. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. If Doom's on it, Doom is selling.
I've seen so many random old Fantastic Four issues, which at some point there's just like tons of Doctor Doom covers for Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But people are just like slabbing every other one and putting them on eBay. And boy, are they selling.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild that just like such a singular character, which I think has maybe been bolstered a bit by like this Doom book that came out a month and a half ago,
Sanford
maybe.
Green.
Yeah, by
which
Sanford
is still
Green.
selling insanely
One
well.
shot, and that book's been so hot.
Yeah.
And part of the reason they're like crediting its popularity is because of
MF Doom
and non-comics people being interested in this comic because of MF Doom.
MF Doom and the kind of style of the book leads itself to people who are into graffiti, anime.
Yeah.
It's a once in a lifetime book that kind of tickles the interests of many different subgenres of people.
And there's just MF Doom like references in it, right?
The MF Doom, it opens with an MF Doom lyric.
Okay.
And so, being an MF Doom fan, that was cool. But I also like comic books. So if I was not in the comic books, I would not be hunting down this Doom comic. I don't need to have it for my collection.
I do think that connection to the whole thing is kind of weird. I'm trying to like articulate like without being because MF Doom is cool and all, but he did his whole shtick after Doom.
Yes.
So he's like secondary to the character already, right?
Yeah.
This is like
do you think there's people who think Dr. Doom came from MF Doom?
No, but it's just weird that you would be like stoked on this when like the main course is
Doom.
Just Doom already. To me, it's like a popular band covers a version of their own song that another cover band did. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like if Kiss did a version of like...
It's like if Trent Reznor covered Johnny Cash's version of Nine Inch Nails song.
Yes.
I'd listen to that.
Sure, I guess I would too. So what am I complaining about? In any case, I think like my comic book advice to everyone would be chill on the overwhelming majority of the Doom covers.
Yeah.
And maybe not a good time to buy a lot of like Fantastic Four back issues in general because everything's selling at such
inflated prices. It's
an
crazy.
Inflated price right now, and that's not gonna sustain itself.
Also, another reason to chill on the Doom stuff, we don't know what RDJ is.
Yeah.
He like I hate circling back to this thing, but like so at San Diego Comic-Con, it was announced that RDJ, Robert Downey Jr., was going to be Victor Von Doom. Not Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, who we can assume becomes Dr. Doom. But it could be his father. It could be an alternate version of Victor Von Doom.
Yep.
We don't know yet. So to you people out there who want to enjoy the ride of the comic book stuff and the Fantastic Four stuff, you're going to overpay too much.
Yeah.
And maybe potentially buy the wrong book.
Yeah, if you have so much disposable income that you just don't care, spend $250 on your infamous Iron Man #1 in a 9.8, but I would say do not buy that comic.
Or
we don't pay more than $50 for that comic.
And we just cover on the
There's
Patreon.
no way it sustains itself. We did the year retrospective cover price thing where they look at what were the top 10 trending high-selling comics that week. And then they do a thing where they look at them a year later, and everything is in the red. And when I say in the red,
50% off,
like
in the red.
50% off of its like peak value.
So here's our suggestion. FIC suggestion here. Take it at your own, leisure. Write the book down you want on the top 10. Put that money into a high yield savings account. Let it compound interest. Check on that book in a year. If it's gone down in price, withdraw from that savings account and buy it.
If you still even want it.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of the books
or buy a Toyota Corolla. I don't give a shit.
One of the books that was going crazy was that like X-Men, whatever it is, 114 or something, which is Cassandra Nova's first appearance.
Yep.
That book's cut in half.
Yeah.
The price.
Mean, you could buy 2 of those for the price of 1 now.
Yeah.
Hence 50% off.
Yeah.
So all we're saying with the Doom bubble is don't be caught up in the hype. We know that FOMO is real, but we don't even fucking really know what is going to happen with it all.
Yeah.
So, tut.
I saw a bunch of headlines this week about Stormy Daniels having a comic. Is this something you knew about?
No? What?
So she was doing a couple like comic book sightings.
Yeah.
She's been like touring.
Yeah. The woman who brought down Donald Trump.
And doing press. Well,
brought him to his knees. Instead, well, anyway. The Kingslayer.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's like, it looks like it's a Barbarella sort of like space adventure thing. So
I have 2 thoughts on this.
Okay.
First thought, I don't want this. Second thought, get your bag, Stormy. I don't give a shit. Make that money.
Also, yeah, I kind of feel the same way about it.
Like, get as much money as you can. I don't want to read it, but go ahead.
I don't know if she wrote anything or if she just has a team that are just like, how can we capitalize on like whatever it is you do?
I'll be shocked if this book isn't 65% AI.
Yeah, that'd be unfortunate.
It's just like, how can we make a comic book really fast? What's this? A computer will draw it for us?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, no opinion.
Okay, same. Maybe should have left it out of the show.
No, but it's fun to just talk about for a second. Stormy Daniels.
Okay, this was I feel like the biggest news that I saw this week, or like maybe one of the funner conversations. The New Mutants 98 cover, original cover work, is up at auction. And the auction is starting at $7.5 million, which would be the most expensive comic artifact like ever sold. Which is like, it's funny that you're starting an auction at a price that's higher than any other comic thing ever.
Presumptuous. Very presumptuous. Can the auction go down?
Quite a bit. They asked Rob Liefeld if he was like salty about this at all.
Oh, so he's not selling it?
No. He sold it to a collector like years ago. And his whole thing is like, this is just a normal part of comics and an income stream for artists because, you know, drawing and writing comics isn't always like a sustainable career. So as artists, we always supplement our income by selling the artwork to collectors. It's just part of it. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
So he sold it for, you know, probably next to nothing in comparison.
Oh, I bet it. Well, in comparison, yes, to the $7 million.
Yeah, right. I bet he sold it for, I mean, at the time,
It depends on when he sold it.
Yeah, that's true. It depends on when he sold it. If he sold it around the time the like comic came out,
then he got hosed.
Yeah, this could be like $500 or something.
Oh man. Okay.
Wow.
7.5 million. There's no way. You know what? I'll take it back. There is a way that this gets sold for way more than that.
Deadpool is, I mean, such an iconic character now, and then that's one of like the most buzzworthy issues of Marvel Comics, especially now with the movie having just come out. So it's a good time to sell that artifact. I would probably say Rob Liefeld's most famous cover or singular piece of work.
Yes.
I would...
Unless you're discounting the now famous distorted Captain America pose.
The huge chest.
Which isn't even a cover.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like other comic artifacts that have to be out there that like seem like they should fetch more money to me.
That like the Smithsonian doesn't already own?
Or yeah, I don't know. I mean,
because like Superman #1, if anyone has that cover somewhere,
there's no way. I feel like there's no way that exists.
It has to exist somewhere.
The original cover.
I have to imagine that someone at DC Publishing was just like
hung on to that.
Hey, we should keep this. Like I have a feeling that we should just keep this.
Maybe you would think a lot of that stuff was just like a dime a dozen. Throw a bunch of ideas at a wall and see what sticks.
God,
at the time.
You know what's crazy? We were just talking about what superhero we imagined we would be, right? My thing is always like, if I had a time machine, what would I do? I'd be that guy who would go back in time to the moment when they were going to throw out the original drawing of the Superman #1 comic book and be like, oh, hey, can I take that home to my kids? Gee whiz.
Right. You think about how many you make, and just like the stacks of these things would have just filled entire office buildings.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So they had to get rid of them at some point. Who knows? But can you think of a cover that you would value over this cover? I mean, I can think of like a shit ton.
Giant Size X-Men #1.
Definitely. I mean, forget about like X-Men #1, Amazing Spider-Man #1,
Fantastic Four #1.
Fantastic Four #1, like all of these books.
Yeah.
I mean, anything Kirby, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people have to have some of these original Kirby pages, right?
Yeah.
Like, who has like the Coming of Galactus, the one with the Watcher?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if this cover actually sold for $7.5 million, that sets a precedent, I think,
dangerous precedent
of what these things are worth. And then all of a sudden, Kirby classic covers should be worth like $25 million,
Yeah,
right?
right.
like that's.
And it's just like, yeah, I don't like that it's that much.
Mhm.
It seems too bloated. And like the importance is too inflated of what it really is. Now listen, I like Deadpool as much as the next guy.
Yeah.
Okay? And it is an iconic cover.
Mm-hmm.
But $7.5 million is ludicrous.
Yeah.
That is like Royal Emirate, like Saudi Arabia money that you're going to spend on this.
When the what's it called? Beyond Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
This is touring Spider-Man museum exhibit thing. And there is a couple collectors that put a lot of their stuff on loan for this exhibit.
Sure, yeah.
And one of the guys who owned like half of everything was like a Saudi like billionaire that just had like Amazing Spider-Man 300 cover. Like the same guy owned the Ultimate Fallout first Miles Morales cover.
Wow.
And the like second printing. They had the second print stat because it was the same cover, right? But then they revealed
his face.
Miles Morales' face, so they had the stat too with it, which I thought was really
sick.
funny.
The Saudi and Royal Emirate collector stuff is wild to me.
Yeah.
They have such robust collections because like nothing comes there, or like it's not really readily available to them. So when you have that much money, and like I would do the same goddamn thing.
Yeah.
So maybe one of them will buy it. I don't know, but that they're overpaying for what it is. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on.
Yeah.
What's that about Stormy Daniels?
Okay, so one thing that I found out today that I did not know is that the Comixology guys are the
Tim
same
Comics and Ericology.
Are the same guys that started DSTLRY.
What?
Did you know that?
No.
Obviously not with your reaction.
Yeah.
I was the same way. I was reading an article about how they got like their seed money and the presentation they gave and all this stuff. And they have $7.4 million in funding for this thing, which blew my mind. And then a lot of the like pitch deck stuff kind of talks about like this evolution of like a digital marketplace, which is something that distilleries kind of like dabbled in. But more than anything, up to this point anyway, it's an independent comics publisher.
Right.
That publishes like large format kind of deluxe comics.
Right. That's what keeps the lights on.
It doesn't seem like a $7.4 million thing. And it doesn't seem like a tech industry or tech startup.
No.
So you got to wonder what the grander plans are for DSTLRY. I kind of feel like there's probably going to be like a
shift,
a phase 2 of this thing wherein they're going to turn into like more of a digital marketplace where like you could post your digital comic to DSTLRY and like have a cut of the proceeds or something. Like it kind of sounds like they're trying to make it more of like a marketplace and the incentive is paying the creators more.
When will people that do this realize that collectors primarily want to hold their shit and read it?
Yeah.
Like that's half the fun of collecting comic books. It's having the comic book in your hand and putting it in a box and not reading it for 20 years. I don't know.
I really believe, and we've talked about this before, so I'll make it brief. Make digital comics cheaper.
Yeah.
I would buy way more of them if they were cheaper.
If they were $2, I would buy strictly digital.
And yeah, now there's like no incentive for me to like not have some artifact because like we're talking about, I've got
There's no incentive to pay the same price.
All my comics I've ever purchased, if I was buying these digitally, yeah, I'd have less of like a physical burden in my home. But at the same time, every once in a while, infamous Iron Man #1 pops up, and I'm like, let me pull that bad boy out. That's selling for $200 this week. If you own a digital copy, because it was the same monetary investment. And again, the idea of these things as an investment is not the right way to look at it. It's not a smart money investment. Your money is better spent in other things. My thing is, if I'm spending that money anyway, it might as well be the version of it that is more like an investment.
And that can benefit me.
Or has at least some form of sustained, like, value or collectability. Like, given we're all collectors at heart, we love the stories, blah blah blah.
Okay, so like, I'm not an economist, I know nothing about money, but how I see it is the price that I pay for the physical comic, it is built in that I am paying for it to be printed. I'm paying for ink, I'm paying for distribution, I'm paying for someone to assemble it, and that is why I'm willing to pay $4.99 for a physical comic, because I know a lot went into it.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying that the same amount of love and care doesn't go into a digital comic, but you are skipping a few steps with distribution and printing and materials and all of that. So, logically, I should pay less for a digital comic. I'm saving you time and money.
Right.
Why aren't you doing the same for me?
Yeah.
Rant over.
I paid $5.99, I think, for a digital comic today.
No.
Just to talk about it on the podcast.
Boo.
Read it in 3 minutes.
That's why I love Humble Bundle. Legitimately, you can like make out like a bandit with Humble Bundle.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I could talk about this for 6 hours. Let's move on to the next topic.
Yahoo had New Mutants ranked #1 X-Men spinoff of all time.
I agree.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Hey.
It's fantastic.
All right.
Casting was great. Tone was great.
Oh, not talking about the movie.
Oops. Talk about the comic book.
Just comic book, all spin-offs of X-Men ever.
Cool. Did they read Exterminators?
Oh, Exterminators was so good. But drop in the bucket compared to all these other spin-offs. That was like 4 issues.
Oh, man.
I mean, it beats X-Force, X-Factor, Excalibur, Generation X, all the Wolverine books.
I don't know.
That's tough.
Oof, that is
It's not an easy list to make.
That's a Patreon episode.
Yeah, maybe we should save this for more thought and deliberation later.
I will hold my response till then.
I love New Mutants. It's one of the only series that like came out mostly before I was like born.
You have every issue.
And I have every issue. I've like gone back and collected every issue. So near and dear to my heart, even still, like that's a tough call to make.
Yeah. Send me that article because I want to read it because like what?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. Kraven the Hunter is R-rated. We've gotten confirmation on that.
Ooh. Now I'm going to go buy 2 tickets.
Do you care at all about like seeing news like that?
When is this coming out?
I don't know, to be honest.
Then fuck all.
We've been hearing about it for a while.
We've been hearing about it for almost a year.
I kind of feel like they maybe made this decision immediately after seeing like Deadpool, Wolverine do well. And they were like, ours too is also a raunchy R-rated experience. Because so far, none of the other movies they've done, aside from the Deadpool ones, have been R-rated, right? The Venom movies were not R-rated.
Not that I can remember.
Madam Web was not R-rated.
I can't imagine what they're going to add to this Kraven movie thanks to this R rating that's going to turn the tides for me on wanting to see it.
Yeah, it'll be... So, the rated R factor for Deadpool meant, like, raunchier comedy, more gratuitous violence that was, like, funny, right? Like, the gratuity was funny.
Yeah. For Kraven.
For Kraven... It's not going to have a light tone. It's going to be really dark.
A lot of animals eating people.
And like the gratuity will not be a good time in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about like the language of Deadpool that made it fun, I kind of hate when fun superhero movies or superhero comic books or anime or something like that just drop a bunch of unnecessary F-bombs.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, this is just your clue to know that like it's okay to like this. You're like, this is for adults too.
Mm-hmm.
And that just seems so corny to me. It's just like,
no kids allowed.
Let me enjoy the things that I like. I don't need you to curse a lot for me to be like, oh, this is for me. And I'm like twisted. I'm a twisted adult. Like, that's just fucking corny.
Can't you tell from my ICP sticker in the back of my truck?
So, if anything, I'm like less excited for, if it's possible to be less excited for Kraven the Hunter. I was like, this news kind of worked in reverse. That it's like not going to be fun for kids. Like, this movie might make like $1 million. It might lose. This movie might lose $100 million.
You had the hidden like reveal that this may be fun for kids. If it's PG-13, hey, this may be fun for kids. Now that it's a hard R, you're like, oh, this isn't gonna be fun for anyone.
It's one of those things that will feel like it's for no one.
Because like no adult wants to go see this and be like, oh fuck yeah, my Kraven movie's gonna be R.
I felt like this with Jurassic World, where there was some just like brutal violence in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I was just like, I thought one thing when this was a kids movie, like when I went into this being like fun dinosaurs and like CGI, and you're like, okay, and then they tried to make Vincent D'Onofrio's character like really dark, and then just like killed him out of fucking nowhere, and all this gratuitous violence. You're just like, okay, so who is this movie for? Because if it's not for me, and if it's like not,
is it for the dinosaurs?
Then it's not for kids. Yeah,
it's some kind of weird dinosaur revenge movie.
I just like did not. The only part I liked about it,
the 3 velociraptors in the back hooting and hollering, loved it.
Look at us go. The only part I liked about it were the like control room pauses that they would show people in like that were kind of like man in the chair, like security people, and they kind of had this like dumb romance story kind of like building between the two, and then at the end the girl was like, I'm married actually, and like the guy was reading it wrong the entire time. I thought that was really funny, and I was like, I could have done with a drama, like an action comedy that was based around these two people
in the
like,
midst of chaos,
watching the security cameras and kind of just like
another.
flirting and drinking coffee and eating donuts and like keeping it chill. That Jurassic World was so bad in my opinion. Okay, and then here's some spec alert.
Woo!
Comic I think to pick up next round of pre-orders that's gonna come out.
Oh shit! Okay.
Scarlet Witch #6 in Steve Orlando's newest volume.
Okay.
Of that series.
Why?
Wanda is getting a new apprentice.
Ooh.
And so it appears they've kind of like brought Agatha back as kind of like the grandmother of all things witches, and then the Scarlet Witch, who I think maybe retroactively,
do we know
canonically,
if it's a new character?
I think it is.
Okay, so it could be Sabrina.
I don't think it's Sabrina. I don't think we're doing an Archie crossover here.
Damn it.
But I do think first appearance, so
Scarlet Witch #6.
You might pre-order that.
Get it while it's cover price.
Now I'll say that the Black Widow had an apprentice when Kelly Thompson was writing, and that book at one point was selling for like $30 on eBay raw, and is now like a $2 comic. Yeah. And then the same thing kind of happened with Scarlet Scarab, who had like a lot of retroactive buzz because that character had never like formally been introduced in the comics as the version that was in the TV show, and people just pre-ordered the hell out of that book. So there's just so many copies of whatever it is, Moon Knight City of the Dead, I think, no, issue 2.
Yep.
So people just pre-ordered tons and tons and tons of those. So that's also like a $1 comic right now. So there's a precedent for some of these books to end up being pretty valueless. But at the same time, I think this one is maybe a little more under the radar.
Sure.
And we're doing more like witchy stuff with Agatha all along and a couple other things where you might see this character pop up in a movie, and not a lot of people are like thinking about that with this particular comic coming out.
Right.
So if you can get your hands on it for like a pre-order price, I say
Do
just like roll the dice on this comic because it'll be a fun, maybe minor first appearance to get your hands on.
Hell yeah.
That's all.
That's all the news?
That's all I had.
That's pretty good. I don't have any news.
Not bad. When I was sitting next to a guy who has zero news, I think
the only thing I read,
I think I did pretty good.
Here's the thing. Here's what I read. That I saw the article and I was like, oh, this will be good, but it was kind of nothing. It was basically Tom Brevoort, editor of X-Men right now.
Okay, yeah.
Still refusing to really give a response to the QR code fiasco. QR gate, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And essentially from his Substack, just kind of doubling down and being like, hey, shut up. Like, it's a fun thing. I think it's a fun thing. And that's it. That's where he's leaving it. So the official response from Marvel editing, hey, shut up.
The scenario that we were talking about on our Discord a couple weeks back seemingly happened in the most recent X book I read, wherein a character was kind of revealed in the QR code page. So now it's like that issue would have been a first cameo appearance or something, and now that like just does not exist as a cameo.
It does in the digital sphere.
Yeah, the cameo is just online in a link.
Here's what you do: you print that page out.
Yep.
You put it in the back of that comic. I don't fucking know. I think it's a bad idea. I thought maybe there was a marketing meeting at Marvel. They're like, oh, this will be fun. Fans will love this. We don't. I don't know how far invested you are in this QR code thing. Stop it.
At least put it in a format that works on a phone.
Yeah.
Like, don't make it a normal comic page that I have to like zoom in and zoom out from panels. Like, it's just not a way to like appreciate the art or like absorb the content at all. Make it like one of those Infinity comics where like you scroll.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make me open it on a phone.
Woof. Let's get in. Let's do this. Let's get into comic books we want to talk about right now. The ones from this week, the hottest ones, the ones that you can barely touch without gloves on.
That's right.
Let's go. I read Garfield #1.
Did you?
I did. Garfield #1, based on
how's our lasagna loving
the Garfield comic book movie. The Garfield movie that's out right now, where not Chris Evans. Which Chris is it? The one who played Star-Lord. Chris.
No.
Not Hemsworth, not Pine, but Chris. What's his name? Is it Chris?
I don't know.
In any case, it's written by Ryan Estrada and illustrated by Axer Inyas, created by Jim Davis. We can't forget old Jim, the guy who started this all.
Finally getting the created by credit, just like our old
Bill Finger.
Bill Finger. In 60 years from now.
So I'll say as the club expert on Garfield.
Yeah.
The Monday curmudgeon that I am. Garfield, the comic strip, is not good. It doesn't do anything. It's Garfield being mean.
Yeah.
To either Odie or John or, frankly, to be honest, himself.
You like the extended Garfield universe.
The extended Garfield universe is really the thriving thread here.
Yeah.
In the 90s, you had the Garfield TV show.
Yeah.
Which had Garfield doing his thing, and then another show within it where it was like animals on a farm.
I crossed that over. I could have sworn Garfield was in those cartoons, but he was not.
It was like a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
It was in the same cartoon.
The show was called Garfield and Friends.
You nailed it.
But
the friends never met Garfield.
I don't think they did. There was remember the duck that wore like an inner tube and the
himself.
And the inner tube had a little
and it moved when he moved.
Car mount thing, yeah.
and then Sheldon was the egg who never hatched.
Just the legs.
Just little legs.
Yep.
That was a phenomenal show. Pivotal show in my life because it was how I really got into Garfield.
Yeah.
And then
we did a couple holiday specials.
And then it went into a different stratosphere when we had Garfield without Garfield. Do you remember this strip?
Yeah.
Someone online, like in the early aughts, the height of Urban Outfitters era, if so you can as you date yourself, they took old Garfield comic strips, removed Garfield, and just had John talking to himself.
Yeah, they were very depressing and sad.
It was the most bizarre, avant-garde, weird thing that could have happened to Garfield, and it was great.
It was surprising how many of them worked.
Worked really well.
Yeah.
Really, it looked like John had like schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Or like the loss of a child, like phantom limb
some
syndrome.
Of them work so well that you're like, was the long game that Garfield was like John's hallucination the entire time?
And really, I'm okay with that theory. That's my headcanon right now. And then really the most recent great thing that happened to Garfield was the episode of I Think You Should Leave, where the woman buys Jim Davis's old house and everything in it is Garfield colored.
Yeah.
But really the Garfield comic book in its inception is grumpy orange cat, likes lasagna, hates Mondays, and causes hell for everyone.
Yeah.
There's no real redeeming factor of Garfield.
Yeah.
He's kind of like just like Scrooge. Like you just put up with him, which is how I view all cats. You just put up with them. And so this book that's out now from Boom, it's for kids. Like it's not really there's no like through line, there's no stream.
Yeah.
It's like just segmented stories of Garfield either trying to get lasagna or trying to get someone else to get him lasagna. Mm-hmm. Not really great storytelling, but it makes kids read. Yeah. So that's really what we're after here.
All right.
I'm still waiting for my For Better For Worse comic book.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Really depressing book about family. So, I mean, even in a nostalgia sense, it's not that great of a get because it's about the Garfield movie that is out now or is now left theaters. So, anyway.
I never know with these things. So many properties like this kind of have a comeback and are geared more towards our generation.
Yes.
And then there are other ones that are still just for kids. And navigating that is kind of tough. Mm-hmm. Like Kelly Thompson just did Powerpuff Girls comic. Definitely like a preteen or little kid comic.
But you can subvert that to any generation because they actually do things. Mm-hmm. They're fighting crimes. They're growing up. They're learning about stuff. Garfield isn't a parallel for anything. He isn't like a stand-in for any kind of social injustice or, underrepresented people.
Yeah.
He's just a stupid cat who likes to eat pasta. How did this comic last for almost 40 years? Jim Davis is the biggest grifter.
We just love the guy. I think Garfield was the original Dilbert.
Yes.
And I think
less racist.
I think Dilbert was so popular because it was just like, let's just do the thing Garfield is doing, but more literally. Like that we don't have to use Garfield as a proxy or like a metaphor for just like
a white guy.
The work week. Yeah. Like, and just like being grumpy about Mondays and just wanting to like sit on the couch and eat dinner. Like, he was the male Kathy in cat form.
And Dilbert's just the male Kathy.
Dilbert's, just like distilled.
Dilbert came about because like no one was just like, I'm not putting a Garfield comic strip in my cubicle. I will get made fun of. And then Dilbert came along and
tells
just like,
the same jokes.
Thank God.
Yep.
Me and my cube mates can gather around my area, giggle at what Dilbert's doing.
The toaster isn't a proxy for the copy machine anymore.
Yeah.
It's just the literal Xerox machine.
Just the literal Xerox machine. They have benign conversations just like we're having.
Have you read any of the like Darkwing Duck or
no
Gargoyles comics that Dynamite is doing, or like the Thundera Battle Cats? What are the battle? Is it Battle Cats?
Thundercats.
Thundercats. They present that stuff as if it were like dark, gritty,
of course,
Dark Knight type storytelling based on like the covers and things. But I kind of doubt that's what's those books are actually like.
You'd probably be surprised. Unfortunately, you'd probably be surprised.
I'm always surprised by Dynamite books, and normally in a positive way, because the covers just do a disservice to like the actual talented people who work on those comics.
Yeah. Next up,
yes,
I read Kosher Mafia by David Hazan and Sammy Kevlia.
I was wanting
Mad
to read
Cave.
this. Yeah, it's based on a true story.
Okay, so the Kosher Mafia is a real thing. Back in the 20s and 30s, when the Mafia was just out and about and proud, there were different subsects. There was Italian, Irish, like Polish, and Jewish mafias. And they went around in their own little areas and controlled that and movement of product and protection of the community, what have you. And so what this book is not exactly that specifically. It's not like a historical comic where it's like, here's what actually happened during that time. It's a story within that time frame dealing with the Kosher Mafia, where World War II is just about to happen.
Okay, yeah.
And someone within their ranks is just like, hey, this Hitler guy is becoming a real problem. And the other members of the Mafia are just like, that's a European problem. Don't worry about it. And then it's a whole conversation of just like, no. Like,
this sentiment is
the sentiment is spreading here in America.
Yeah.
They're just like, what he's preaching in Europe and what the Nazis stand for, it is very much here. And we are very much in threat. It does not matter that we are a mafia. Like, we are seen to them as just like lesser beings.
Yeah.
And so our status and our reputation and the possibly the fear and the power that we have means fuck all to these people. And so it kind of builds up that there's like a split happening between a small sect of that to kind of handle the problem or investigate it further. And so it's kind of, I don't know if I would say it's like a historical fiction, but it's definitely set within a time where possibly this could have happened.
Yeah.
And I'm loving it. The first issue was amazing.
There's nothing like sci-fi or completely fantastical about it. It's like based in reality.
Yeah, it's very rooted in its reality, in its historical place. So I think it's an interesting and fun story, and I hate saying it, but it is prevalent in the times that we're living in. Unfortunately, it will always be. Prejudice and bigotry are sadly always going to be a thing, which is why it's so important that we all speak up and try to battle it and talk against it as much as we can. And so I really like what this book is going to be doing and exploring those themes and that time period. And Mad Cave is on a series of heaters right now.
Dude, Mad Cave is like
just crushing it.
Sleeper Publisher of the Year.
Yeah, they were what Vault were like 2 or 3 years ago.
Most improved.
Yeah,
so many good books this year.
They've collected a bunch of IPs and a bunch of creators that are just creating some phenomenal stuff over there.
Totally.
So kudos to them. And then the last book I read was the Kieran Gillen and Gasper Wingard book. I'm forgetting the
Absolute Power.
The power struggle or something.
Oh, Absolute Power.
The
DC
power
thing.
fantasy.
Power fantasy. Yeah.
Well, that was a struggle.
Yep.
And it's a very complex book. Obviously, Kieran Gillen is a complex writer. He challenges us in many ways. And this book definitely challenges you in what it presents with a bunch of like, it's hard to explain without really kind of like going into this like DMT fueled like regurgitation of like what is power. But it's like superheroes who are like working behind the scenes and pulling the strings and altering history and being the reason why history is altered.
Yeah.
And it's all very good, and it's stories that we have seen before, but like in a new packaging, and that's fine. It's no shade there. But recently, this book is getting some controversial attention because within the book, a superhero at the behest of another superhero has to assassinate a political figure.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now this is coming off 2 or 3 weeks from the recent assassination attempt on a presidential nominee here in America. And so I think the book maybe got pushed to a different, like, I don't know if it was supposed to come out earlier or later, but like it's definitely a juggling act that's happening right now. And interesting timing. I mean, obviously not like purposeful, but like it is. It strikes a chord of how impactful and how like how this could happen any day, really. An assassination thing. So I'm a huge Kieran Gillen fan, and this book is good. It's not really my cup of tea as far as like reading material and story type, but you got 2 heavy hitters of creators, so if you're fans of them, you'll definitely love this book.
Yeah, I loved Immortal X-Men, and I am excited for another Kieran Gillen indie book because it's been a while since. Maybe he's released some books that I just like missed or slept on, but it's been so long now since like Wicked and Divine and some of those other like
Marvel's kept him busy.
Really big books he's had. Yeah, he has been kept kind of busy by Marvel. So
it's very
I'm looking forward to it.
Heady.
Immortal X-Men won like I think an Eisner last year for like best series or best short or something.
And like
that.
the thing is, I don't want it to get lost here of just like it's written well. It's illustrated well, but it is packed full of info. Like, this is a high fantasy conceptual thing.
Yeah.
So get ready. If that's what you enjoy, you're just going to be frothing at the mouth. But for me...
You like breezier reads, typically.
And, like, that makes it sound like I like stupid books.
No,
like,
I don't.
Like, I'm not reading Garfield out here for fun. but it's definitely just like there's a line from when a book becomes a comic book to full on homework.
Yeah. I think there's an expectation of what a comic book is going to be. And in some regards, the medium isn't built for tons and tons and tons of exposition.
Yeah. If that's the case, write a book.
Yeah, right.
Hot take.
This happens a lot, I think, with people who are doing like their spec script, but in comic book form, where they just like, here's an entire like couple pages you have to read to understand the comic that's about to happen.
Right.
And then there's like a couple supplementary like letters throughout it that are like, okay, now I have to stop and read a couple full pages. And it's not always the amount of media or content that you signed up for when you like sat and opened up a comic,
a picture book
for your to enjoy in your like relaxing 10 minutes of spare time you had. And then when it turns into like a longer thing, you're kind of like, oh.
The only time I've seen it work really well is a comic we read a long time ago called Tooth and Nail.
Okay.
With like the anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, it was like a Hickman book, wasn't it? Or was it Jason Aaron? Or...
It was Benjamin Dewey on art and I'm blanking on the writer, but we'll get back to it.
Oh, is this the book they had to change the name of?
Bingo. Yes.
Because there was
It was called something else. It was initially called Tooth and Nail.
which was like a metal record label or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they changed it to like Borderlands or something like that.
Yeah, it was like
Something
a Tooth
Lands.
and Nail story
Yes,
or something like
yes.
that. Yeah.
And the way they did it,
Autumn Lands.
Autumn Lands, there you go. They would have their exposition part on 2 splash pages
Yeah.
with a ton of text,
Uh-huh.
like a chapter book. But it was so elegantly decorated, like
Yeah.
with fillery and like imagery in the background, that I honestly did not mind reading 2 paragraphs of
Yeah.
solid text.
Mhm.
And then they got it out of the way and we had a fun fantasy style book.
Yeah. When you watch Star Wars, do you read the crawl?
Yes.
You can't help it.
I can't
Read
help
the
it.
crawl.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
Count the stars?
Space out.
Nice. Nerd. Yeah, do you not?
No, I was just wondering.
Oh.
It's like
Do you,
it kind of breaks our rule for like
reading?
what like a movie should be or what a comic should be if we're talking about that
Okay.
we don't like set up exposition. Like the beginning of the Star Wars movies is like in the Galactic Empire, there's this ongoing battle between these characters who kind of have this religion that imbues them with like special powers. It's just like, don't explain this to me, show it to me. I'm watching a movie.
I think we've come to expect that now with George Lucas and the Star Wars stuff. Like it was a stylistic choice.
Yep.
However, if you remember, the first Star Wars this first Star Wars story, A New Hope, is chapter 4.
Yeah.
So, like thematically, they were trying to explain what happened in the 3 movies that we haven't seen that weren't created at the time.
Yeah. They wanted to drop you in the middle of chaos.
Right. I like it. I don't like it for every movie.
Yeah.
And I don't want, like, if the scroll was 2.5 hours of that, I might have an issue.
I didn't get the pre-read. It's like homework. All right. I read Red Before Black.
Mm-hmm.
Red R-E-D.
R-E-D, Before Black. It's about the stock market?
No. This is a Stephanie Phillips comic out on
Big fan.
Boom Studios.
It's a Stephanie Phillips Pro podcast.
This comic feels so Vertigo. It made me miss Vertigo as a publisher. I was like, I haven't read a book that felt this Vertigo in a minute.
But that's been a theme this year.
Yeah, I think that style of comic is really coming back, or like people that are our age that are creating comics kind of miss this like weird landscape that Vertigo offered and are bringing that back on other publishers.
Vertigo definitely embraced the weird.
Mm-hmm. Well, now you have publishers that are like Boom, that has had so many successful titles at this point that they're getting bigger and they feel kind of like a powerhouse like Vertigo used to feel, where you could release a new indie book and people would just be like, of course I'm buying the first issue. It's like a name I recognize from a superhero book, and they're doing like some cool independent thing that I know is going to be like a higher production quality than another indie book I picked up that like didn't hit. Like this is like a trusted source because it's so closely tied to other industry experts. Like that's kind of what Boom is becoming. In any case, to give you a quick synopsis of this, it's about this disgraced Army veteran who, her name's Val, and she gets out of jail and immediately goes back to an old contact and is like, I want to be part of the crime ring, get me back in. I don't have anything going on. I need to make money, blah, blah, blah.
Woof.
And he explains, like, it's not that easy. I can't just give you a job. There's other people working for me. They're going to be pissed if I just hire some, like, old acquaintance. And she's like, I'll prove myself. I'll do whatever I need to do. and he basically sets her up to like murder somebody. And it's like your first job back is like murder. And she's trying to figure out if she can do it or not.
The job market's tough out there.
Has this like sort of meeting that's like a connection with a cop somewhere throughout this, or a detective somewhere throughout this. So like I think we're supposed to be under the impression that she's maybe working both sides of this.
Like a plant?
Yeah.
Okay.
And was basically like, hey, the thing you're trying to do is bigger than one life. You're trying to bring down like a whole criminal organization.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically gets the advice to like kill this person to ingratiate herself with this like larger mob, right? And this larger criminal ring.
Right.
While she's going out to do the job, the book kind of, well, she's like beating the shit out of somebody and then kind of dissociates and loses herself into this weird fantasy. And I don't know if that's like a superpower or sci-fi element to this book, or if that was just supposed to let us know that she kind of loses herself in like high intense situations. Like
a coping mechanism.
Yeah, right. Unclear.
Okay.
Because she kind of returns to reality and no one was like, whoa, what just happened? They're like, shit, you're beating the shit out of this guy.
Yeah.
So I think she's found herself in a place where she's kind of like taken a liking or has some things in common with this person she was supposed to kill and doesn't know if she can do it, which is kind of an interesting scenario because she's got the bad guys who want her to kill this girl.
Right.
And then the good guys who also want her to kill this girl. And she's just like the person in the middle who is like, I don't want to kill I don't want to murder somebody.
It's like the devil and angel on your shoulders are both telling you to steal the candy bar.
Yeah, right.
You're like, it's probably pretty good. You should steal it.
So it's an interesting comic. I'm definitely in for I'm not sure if it's a mini or an ongoing, but I'm definitely in for like at least the first story arc to see where it goes. I love Stephanie Phillips. Grimm's been awesome. It didn't read to me as like one of those books that you're just like, whoa, this is gonna like
change everything.
Yeah, like this is the next indie book that like people are gonna be clamoring for. Which sometimes like when a creator you really like that's doing kick-ass stuff puts out a new indie book, just like the Karen Gillan book.
Yeah.
That you're kind of like, there's a hype or an expectation surrounding it that it's going to like blow your fucking mind and be the next. I'm trying to think of like a comp for this. What was the book that had like the Akira homage cover? Bitter Roots.
Bitter Roots, yeah.
That you're like, oh, this could be like a next like Bitter Roots sort of book that gets like a TV deal or something like that, and then everybody wants the first issue.
Which is coming back, by the way.
Is it really?
It was revealed at San Diego Comic-Con.
All right, right on. I didn't know.
Yeah, I think also in development for a movie.
That's what I heard. So, those books are worth a little bit of money now.
Also, it's a great story, so just take that for what it's worth.
Enjoy it as a comic. The way it was meant to be.
The way it was intended. The way the creators had intended.
So it didn't like completely rock my socks off, but like I was saying, it's got that Vertigo cool indie book vibe that I think is like 100% worth picking up and should be a great story.
We've talked about this before on the show about how when you're a vetted creator, and sometimes even when you're not a vetted creator, you've earned the right to not blow our socks off on the first issue. When you've proven that there's a story to be told.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't need this big hook. And sometimes I don't want a huge big hook at the end.
Yep.
Just fucking drip feed me into this big, amazing story. And then in issue 4 or 5, give me the big thing. Like,
completely
lead me in a little bit. I think the way that comic books are now.
Grace. Yeah.
The way comic books are now and how they're marketed and how they're sold is like every issue has to be the first appearance of Deadpool.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like we've lost the storytelling element of like older comics from the 70s and 80s where they're just like, hey, we're making these no matter what.
Yeah.
Like we don't care if you're reading them. Like, we have a story that has to go 2 years, and this is what it's going to be.
Yep.
See you in 2 years if you don't like it. So, anyway. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. The big 2 has kind of created this
false
expectation that, like, every issue is going to be a key issue or potential key.
Exactly.
Like, first cover appearance of this, first cameo, third cameo of this character. In order to sell the most.
First time Clippy's in a comic book.
Of everything. And I think that can help sell, like, the first batch of comics.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you get enough people invested in what's actually a good story, then fingers crossed you have a superhero run that goes like 50 issues. Because that's so rare now. Like, the Kelly Thompson Captain Marvel book, like, got buoyed by the hype around Star, and then turned out to be an amazing 50-issue series that had nothing to do with Star. You know what I mean? But without that character, the back 40 issues of that book might not get made.
Yeah.
Which would be a shame. And you think
needed
about
the initial shock and awe.
Yeah, exactly right. You think about how many other, like, great comics that ended after 10, 11 issues.
Yeah.
Could have gone on to have just, like, amazing runs, but there just wasn't, like, the spec
For
market
example,
for
Kelly Thompson's West Coast Avengers.
Yeah, that was a great comic.
That ended at 14 issues, and I was so bummed. I was like, this has so much legs to it. What are we doing?
One of the series I've been the most bummed about, and I'm still bummed about, is Charles Soule's She-Hulk.
Yep.
It was just so fucking good.
Yeah. And Kelly Thompson's Black Widow.
Yeah,
that ended
series was
so abruptly.
Rad, and it did end quick. Yeah.
That sucked.
And
Big
Elena
time.
Casagrande was doing art, I think.
Holy
so
fuck.
good.
Yeah. Lessons learned, folks.
Yep. On that sour note, all good things must come to an end.
Yep.
So we're, at least we're being thematic there. We'll wrap it up. Like we mentioned earlier, we've got a Patreon if you need a little more First Issue Club to your dome.
You do.
You'll hear the rest of those great credits and where to find us in our socials in the theme song, which is coming now.
Bye.
First Issue Club podcast is brought to you by Boulevard Brewing Company, the people responsible for our favorite drinks, the Space Camper Cosmic IPA family of beers. Our show is edited and produced by our hosts Mike DeStacy, Greg Lichtig, and Andy Vargas. You can find us on social media at First Issue Club, and you can join the supporters who keep our humble podcast going on our Patreon at patreon.com/firstissueclub.